it's one of those cozy little afternoons. Cup of coffee. It's funny because every time I tell myself I don't have time to sit and do nothing, it's actually, as painful as it is to say, the moments when I need that time more than normal. Like, if you know anyone that constantly says, I don't understand people that meditate, I don't understand people that do yoga, life's too busy for that, my life's too busy for that, they kind of see themselves as like above that. They're the kinds of people who meditation's made for. It's designed for people like that, who have this very scarce way of thinking. Like, they think they're going to run out of time, they think they're going to run out of money, they think they're going to run out, and it's like, and that can look differently for everyone as well. Like, I get this voice in my head when I say things like this. I'm aware I'm self-employed. I'm aware I don't have kids, and everyone's situation looks differently. But then everyone's way of finding time for themselves can look different as well. Like, even if that's sitting in the car for 10 minutes with a book, that's giving yourself some time. Anyway, today's topic, I wanted to really talk about radical compassion, radical empathy. It's something a lot of spiritual people will talk about, and it's one of those things where most of us feel like we have empathy, sure. A little less of us will believe we have radical empathy, but we'd like to think we have radical empathy, right? I used to fall in the box of people who believed that I was an empath and that was a burden because I felt other people's emotions, and I blamed it on my strong empathness until I realized what projection was. Learning what projection was probably was one of the things that propelled me into my understanding the world on a more spiritual level. It helped me understand the mirror theory, like how everything we see and everything we think and feel about the world around us is just stuff that's lacking inside us, or that we already have inside us. It doesn't have to be lacking. If we've got a lot of something inside us, we see the world as a lot of that. Once you understand in yourself, oh, I look at certain kinds of people in that way, I judge people in that kind of way because I'm not happy about something to do with that inside me, or like I had an experience back in the day, it contributed to how I judge now. By understanding we do it in our own little ways about lots of different things, it really helps us find compassion for ourselves, actually, because we realize why we do things and it's okay and we can work through that. But when we see other people, it's like, right, okay, you don't choose to judge, you don't choose to live in this world where everything's going against you and it's just one of those days, what's the next thing? These things come in threes, don't they? They didn't choose to live in that world, because if they had the option, if they could like zoom way out into the sky and look at their life and say, do you choose to see things and people with love? Or do you choose to see people out of judgment and assessment and frustration and upset? Like, come on now. It explains a lot of people and their reasons for doing things and saying things, right? We can try and help them realize that they're doing it and it's a habit and a pattern, and maybe figure out like the root of that. But that's another thing I had to come to terms with. We can't help everybody. When you learn to help yourself and you start healing yourself, you get into this frame of mind where you want to heal the world, and that can be spiritual psychosis, actually. So that's something to be careful of. If you feel like your job is to heal the world, help everyone realize their patterns and habits and they can change, I get it, because it's addicting to like realize, oh my god, all the answers are actually very simply inside us, and I want to help my friend and I want to help my mum and I want to help my dad and my sister. But ultimately, like, we don't play God. We can't play God. Like, their life, their journey is in their hands, and how they want to take that and how their pathway is going and unfolding is down to them at the end of the day. It's really hard to come to terms with that, actually. I'm actually taking a counseling course. I want to kind of take a course to figure out if that is just like me excited about my own healing, or if this is me actually wanting to help other people heal. But that's another topic for another day. I want to talk today about, because it's on the topic of a book I've just finished reading, and you don't have to have read this book to take part in this conversation. Like, it's a fab book. You should read it if you're interested in what I say today. But I just finished The Devil You Know, recommended to me by a friend who is training to be a therapist. This isn't a book I would pick up typically, and that's why I think it's made an impact. It's funny, isn't it, how sometimes like the things that impact us the most are the things that we don't actually think we need. Because she knows me fairly well, and she was like, I think you'd really like this book. Because I spoke to her about how I'm fascinated by the human mind. I love knowing like why people work the way they work. I have curious energy. As a spiritual person, we have to be curious, because otherwise we just see things face value. We see people as like angry or frustrated and just say, well, they're not a nice person full stop, like a lot of people will probably assume? Or can we say, could there be other contributing factors to that? Is there a reason why they're giving off all of this stuff, all this projection? It's a really positive thing to be a naturally curious person. As a kid, I used to love and just sit watching my family talk to each other. I was a very shy child, and my dad would always say to me, you're not necessarily taking part in conversation, but you hear everything that happens. Like, you're very aware, aren't you? And as a kid, I was like, I wasn't sure about what he meant by that. But then I got older and realised not all kids are like that. Like, I was always fascinated by my own like thoughts and how the room felt and how people chose to talk to each other and the things we chose to talk about. I've always been fascinated by the human condition and like the idea of little human beings generally, like almost from like an alien form pretending to look into Earth. We have little like days of the year where we celebrate ourselves because that was the day we were born many years ago. We put little pine trees in our house around Christmas time and decorate them with pretty lights. We knock on neighbours' doors to like gift them something or invite them over. I mean, we don't really do that so much these days. But, you know, give a little wave when someone walks past. We walk in our little furry creatures with 4 legs on a lead. I am a people watcher and I do study the way people work, and that contributes a little bit to my own anxiety because you fear what it is that you do, really. Like, if you think about the fears you have in being watched by people and judged by people, it's probably because there's something that you do yourself. Like, in me, people watching makes my brain assume that other people are people watching me all the time, and it makes me anxious about like who's looking, and like that's a whole topic for another day. But watch people like having conversations with like familiar walkers and watching their child like see sand for the first time over here, and then over there someone's laughing with the lady serving them coffee because she spilt coffee on the top, and over here there's, you know, a kid getting ice cream on his nose. Like, I do this little thing when I go on walks where I will boop people's heads that I walk past, not literally, metaphorically, in my mind's eye with like white light, like a blob, like a ball of white light. I'll just go boop and around them as a kind of my way of sending love and healing. It's like compassion for even people that are doing frustrating stuff like on the pavement, such as like spitting or like throwing litter or whatever. We can get frustrated by that. Again, we can choose to be like, what a horrible human being. Like, you were made awful. Like, you were brought up, you must have been. And we can start making all of these stories and make up all of these things. The only thing that we can do in that position, in that situation, is think about who we are. Watching someone drop litter and then getting frustrated about the fact they've left litter, but then you continue walking and the litter's still there. Essentially, you're just as bad. It's not your job to do that. I'm not saying like their problem is now your problem, but at the end of the day, if you can do something about a situation that aligns with your morals, and ultimately realizing even when people do frustrating stuff that goes against your values, stuff that winds you up, it's helping you realize who you are, and you know, you've come a long way to realize you're passionate about that, and that's great. It's waking you up, it's triggering you for a good reason, because it's like, right, this is something important to me. You're learning about yourself by seeing people who aren't you, who aren't going by the ways that you would, and that's okay. That's great even. It's times like that which will really test us in remembering that the fact is people are always doing the best they can given the situation that they're in, given the upbringing that person had, given that moral somebody has about littering. Like, that's okay. We can help like understand that by setting a good kind of example. Who knows, if someone sees you picking up litter after you've just watched someone else drop it, that's going to impact their day. They're going to approach seeing someone doing something that makes them angry differently because they witnessed someone not give them like crap, not show aggression or anything, and instead just choosing to work alongside their own values and choosing love instead. And that's a very like small little example, which is why I want to talk about The Devil You Know, because this is actually a book written by a psychiatrist who has worked with a lot of offenders, people who have murdered family members, strangers, people who have committed terrible crimes, yet Dr. Gwen, she chooses to realize that nobody's born evil. Nobody's born a murderer. You know, life happens, and radical empathy is realizing that actually ourselves and these murderers, these offenders, are alike. You know, I think society tries to make us feel they should be put in a box and locked away and not part of society. And for sure, like, that's definitely important when they are still mentally ill and they are a danger to society. I'm not saying let's let murderers walk around near our kids and stuff. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But it's not the answer to think that is what this person will always ever be for the rest of their life. Understanding of the brain and how it works and why we do certain things and our programs and how we operate from the back end of our stories, the lines that we tell ourselves every day or that our parents told us every day, we don't realize that they still sit in the back of our heads and make our world manifest differently. A lot of people see this with, you know, money, for instance, how our parents worked with money and how their relationship emotionally was with money. Did it make them cry a lot, frustrated a lot? Did it make them argue a lot? That can change how much their children earn, you know, because we might grow up fearing it because we believe it makes you more likely to get a divorce. Like it's something that can wedge in between you and your partner, when someone else can see money as such like a beautiful thing. It enriches your life. That's the same but different way of thinking in terms of people that commit these terrible crimes. Like, they have lots of contributing factors to how something manifested, even if it's really tragic, such as committing a crime. Like, Dr. Gwen talks a lot about a bicycle lock theory, which is that a certain amount of things such as like your living situation, your upbringing, and then also like going to a party and there being loud noise, and then the like final bicycle lock moment, a more specific circumstance situation happening, such as like a trigger as small as like the way someone smiled at you or the thing that they said, that can like all have a knock-on effect to create this action that just like that has changed the rest of their lives. Listening to people articulate how they came to commit unspeakable acts of cruelty and working to help them take responsibility for their actions, I've learned some powerful lessons about human nature. In 30 years of tremendously rewarding and often unpredictable encounters with those people, I've been privileged to witness the amazing capacity of our minds for change. I believe there's comfort and hope to be found in these narratives, which at first glance may seem to be about those people we most fear, but which gradually reveal a common humanity. The Latin proverb that gives this book its title suggests that the devils we know are less risky than the ones we don't. By getting up close to the unknown and the feared, I believe you will find, as I have, that we are more alike than we are different. I realise that accepting our common humanity with monsters may be hard for the reader. I also understand that revenge is human and natural, but it can keep us stuck in our fear and anger, mirroring the very cruelty we condemn as evil. There is wisdom in the popular notion that hating someone else is like taking poison and waiting for them to die. And as Gandhi and others have observed, it is a measure of a just society that we treat the worst among us with compassion. I've come to think of the mind as a coral reef, ancient, layered, and mysterious, not without shadows and risk, but containing nourishing diversity. The exploration of the mind that I embarked on as a student, and which I continue every day, requires a deep dive into the darkness, where things of great beauty as well as danger might appear. We elevate, we expand our life, our potential, the sooner we are honest with ourselves about the dark sides, that we think manifestation and expansion and living our dream is all about the white, the bright, the clarity, the knowing. We must go beneath that first. And I think we can like interchange about where we're focused. Like, it's good to kind of do this, like go underneath in the surface of ourselves, like why we do things, where that's come from, what patterns and habits exist in the clarity side, the white light that we're sure of, the day-to-day things. But then realizing that all of those things have like very thin, I see them as like stems, as little shoots that are connected to our roots, and these roots are things that have taken its time to develop into our world. They've come from our upbringing, they've come from things that we've heard from our siblings or friends or teachers or parents, our caregivers, and just experiences that we've had. Like, just, I think we shouldn't deny, we shouldn't pretend and be ignorant to the very fact that we have history. Being present and aware of, a bit like that litter story I just said, our values and like realizing if something's pissed us off in the moment and just staying true to like, right, what can I do in this moment? I can get mad about what's just happened there, or I can actually like make use of this present moment, the only moment that I can actually like do something impactful in, because the past and the future don't exist. Yes, like that's powerful. But I think the only time we should really be acknowledging the past is in our shadows. You know, the book actually starts with a quote: "The reason for evil in the world is that people are not able to tell their stories." And the author of this book says that one of her favorite questions to her clients is, so where did your story start? If this instance, this problem, this issue you're talking about was a story, was a book, where would it begin? And I think that's such an impactful question, because it allows us to be aware of the fact that everything is like a circumstance of something from before. You know, it's a string of events. We can't just say, well, one day I woke up angry, frustrated at the world, and we can point fingers and say it's because, you know, there's so much going on out there, and this is this and that is that. There's 3 little fingers pointing back at you, babes. What in ourselves is destruction and frustration? What are we doing that is contributing to the world out there, the things that we're annoyed about out there? Over the years, I've come to think of these people as survivors of a disaster, where they are the disaster. Again, that's a very compassionate way of seeing things, realizing that if they had a choice, they wouldn't have chosen the way their course has acted. Here's where she speaks about the bicycle combination lock theory. The first 2 numbers that align are likely to be political, related to masculinity, vulnerability, poverty, but bluntly, most violence is committed by young, poor males, so they can be the first 2 numbers of the lock. The next 2 factors may be specific to the perpetrator, such as substance abuse or varying kinds of childhood adversity. And the final number, the one that causes the lock to spring open and release an act of harmful cruelty, is the most intriguing. It tends to be something in the action of the victim which has meaning only to the perpetrator. So a subtle gesture, a familiar phrase, even a smile, essentially the final trigger. My work is always a search for this fatal final factor that tips them into violence. So we may work out how it fits with the whole history of their lives. It's often like tracking an elusive quarry, a darting tiny fish in a maze of kelp and coral. It requires time and an opening of the mind, a willingness to look, and a little light. Turning suffering into meaning. Like, isn't that the point? I feel like people who just simply believe, people who do terrible things, you know, who don't understand and align with their values as much as you do in a day-to-day basis, shouldn't be helped, should just, you know, sit in a box and like not exist for the rest of their lives. Not only is disregarding that our own tragedies, I know ours might be smaller, you're disregarding that they can be helped. Like, you're assuming that just because, you know, their tragedy is bigger, it doesn't mean it can't be alchemized into something great like ours can. If we just have like a bad day, or we make a stupid mistake, and a lot of people tend to just melt themselves down into shame. Like, it's not far from that. We are human. we have tragedy of all kind of levels in our lives. We're disregarding that, but we're also disregarding that it takes mistakes and the dark and the suffering and tragedy to have the other side, to have faith in humanity and complete and utter like joy and love for good acts and like responsibilities that are tended to and cared for. And I think a lot of people would rather just pretend that one side doesn't exist so that they can reap all the benefits of this side. And then the book finishes with, "The many life stories I have heard in the course of my work have given me infinite respect for the mind's complexity. The deeper I go, the more I realize how unknowing it is, like the vast universe itself. Evil is really a term, much like beauty, which says more about the viewer than the object." Projection. Our reset general state as a human being is love. Our purest state is love. When we're out of line with that, in whatever word you want to give it, whether it's, you know, fear down here, or anger up here, and desire down here, we can all come to an awareness of our story. You know, realizing how we got to where it is that we are now, from the place that we were originally, from a baby full of love and happiness and joy and everything. Telling these tales of suffering and violence will have served a purpose if next time you see a news item or a film about some evil monster, it's possible for you to look at them with a new consciousness, knowing that we are all more alike than we are different. Like, imagine living in a world where we didn't have therapists and psychiatrists, helping these people understand that they're not innately evil monsters, you know, helping these people understand that they have a story that's powerful and they're in charge of that, and they can change the way that story ends. Yes, it might be in prison for the rest of their lives, but a lot of these people found things like faith and connection with other people and relationships to help them turn that around, because otherwise they're going to live in this like constant reality of, I'm always going to be what I was when I entered this prison, and I'm stuck in that timeline, and I'm going to loop that for the rest of my life. Therapists, psychiatrists, they let you step out of that very unhelpful looped way of living, just facing like the same cold hard fact every single day. She speaks about how there's not a lot of funding for that. You know, we fund a lot of the more physical aspects of our life. We need improved legislation and allocation of public resources, promoting measures that encourage pro-social attitudes and reduce child adversity. Among our interventions should be more and better help for people with addiction and the socially isolated, and assistance for parents with mental health problems. We also need greater investments in specialised psychological therapies for complex conditions. That bicycle lock analogy tells us what the risk factors are. So now we need the political and social will to reduce their impact and even to abolish some of them. Yes, it will cost us time and money, but the rewards will be beyond price. Yes, it will cost time and money, but what else is costing us money is the medication and keeping people locked up and the things that come with ignoring the fact that getting people to help understand their mind and navigate change in their life manifests into, you know, like without that mental kind of stimulation and exploration, they're living in a looped world. They need to be guided through that. Instead, you know, funding into medication and prisons will just continue to be needed because there's not a lot of good that comes with just thinking certain people are evil. You know, I think this lady was speaking about how when she tells people she's a psychiatrist, she's a forensic psychiatrist, they're like, how do you do that? Like, aren't those people just born mad? Like, I could never do what you do. But you're essentially saying you can't be helped either. Like, the micro comes with the macro. That's another way of saying, like, if I had a difficulty, I wouldn't be able to see an easy way out as quickly as you would. The human mind is too complex to understand using only one way of thinking or one kind of technique. If raising a child takes a village, then changing minds takes many people working together in different ways. I just wanted this conversation really to maybe spark something in your day, and it'd be cool if maybe you could share it down below and talk about where you've had to choose truly radical compassion, because it is hard sometimes. It's so hard sometimes just to see everyone with love and light. But there was one story in this book where a prisoner was so inspired by this religious friend who was also in prison, but saw everyone with compassion and understanding, no matter like if they were religious or what they had done, or simply because he was able to see it in someone else, seeing how someone can choose to live their life so intentionally close to their morals and with love and understanding of other people and respect of other people. It helped him through the process of coming out of prison when he was supposed to, rather than having his sentence prolonged, which a lot of people end up doing in prison because they don't get the mental help that they need in prison. But we can be those people for others in our lives. Choose to be the example, choose to be the person that you wish other people could be like. I say the same thing about manifesting relationships and partners and friends. We can be frustrated about the fact that they're not there yet, like where are they? We need them in our lives. Or we can choose to live that life that we're essentially asking to be created right in front of us. We can choose to live that. Choose radical compassion, empathy today if you can. And I'll be intrigued to know if you've had any examples in your life where you felt you've had to do that. Maybe you had no choice to do that, or maybe you just really felt called to do that, and how did it help and impact your life at that time? And maybe there's a situation you're going through at the moment where you haven't chosen radical empathy quite yet. You're still working that out. Maybe there's a situation you're going through where that is the answer. And I think you'll be surprised about how many things can be solved, and you can ultimately make yourself feel better about something by choosing to feel better about something, from the very fact you're just choosing the lighter option, choosing the option with love and moving forward with that instead. Because anything else but that is essentially stuff that we are choosing to carry ourselves, whether that's anger and frustration, upset. You know, a lot of that is to do with things that we're holding on about the past. We must choose to walk forward in the present as an example of our next desired life. Otherwise, we're going to be in a constant loop in the past, wired to act and be the person we used to be, doing the same things we used to do then. There's no time like the present, as they say. Seeing every day as a fresh start to just be like, What values are important to me today? Yes, that happens. I find acceptance, but what can I do that serves me today? How can I see everyone in this situation I'm going through with love and acceptance as them being in their own life paths, doing their own journeys, going through their own shit. Life's difficult, man. Like, we're all just doing the best that we can in the situation that we're in. The sooner we can get to that, the easier it's going to be for ourselves to not only like breathe, loosen up, but walk forward. We realise something we did in the past, something we feel ashamed about or regretful of or anger about, crosses our boundary of like, what is us now? It like walks across that value line of what, you know, it means to be us. What can I do today that just really honours who I am, what means a lot to me, and you'll be surprised about what impact that has on other people. It's like when you see someone going through such a shitty situation, yet they're still like themselves. They're still choosing positive energy and they're still choosing to look forward. And it's like, wow, regardless, we always honour who we are, what's important to us, how we want to move forward, regardless of what we've done or regardless of our experience. Because the present moment is all that we really can work with, can work on. Thanks for sitting and having a discussion with me. And I will see you for my next chat. If you've got any topic suggestions, that would be cool to let me know in the comment section. Loads of love. I hope you're having a lovely week. I hope you have a lovely weekend. All the best. Thanks for joining.